Hey guys, what's up? It's Allison, and today I am coming at you with my favorite books of 2023. There are going to be a lot of cuts in this video just because I'm going to pull each individual book off the shelf one at a time so that I don't have piles and piles of books laying around. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. In January, or I think January, I read the first book in the Magnolia Parks series and I gave it a 4.75. Looking back on it, it's a 5-star read, obviously. So the Magnolia Parks series is Magnolia Parks, Daisy Hates, then Magnolia Parks The Long Way Home, and then Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. So Magnolia Parks follows Magnolia and BJ, and that is their whole little their romance. It's a very toxic relationship. You find more out about their romance as the books go on. But yeah, I'm not going to say a bunch of it, but a lot of people don't like the book because it's just super toxic. I, however, ate the book up. I think it was so entertaining. And it not only focuses on those two, but it focuses on their whole group, which is called the Box Set. And they're from London, I believe. It's just cool. They're all like rich, you know, younger kids, not younger kids, in their 20s, just like really just rich people drama. And BJ and Magnolia, you know, kind of figuring out their relationship and all of that stuff. And we know in the beginning that something happens with them. The end of book 1 is absolutely nuts. And then you go on to Daisy Hates, which these are two. Daisy Hates is a completely different character that you kind of see in the books, and then she is in a romance with Christian, who is part of the Box Set from Magnolia's little group. And Christian and Magnolia have had some history, so that plays in. But I am one of the, I feel, few people that likes Daisy Hates better than Magnolia. I just like her character a lot more. These books also follow Julian Hates, which is her brother. And they all tie in with each other somehow. So I highly recommend these books. A lot of people do. I just love this series. And we have our 5th book. I don't know if it's the last book or not, but it is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark coming out. And the way that the last Magnolia Parks book ends, because these follow the same timelines, just different characters going through kind of the same stuff. So yeah, the way this one ended, I don't know what she's going to do. I really don't know what she's going to do. So that is my first favorite book of 2023. Okay, next up we have the Addicted series, which is kind of similar to Magnolia Parks, but different. I mean, it's a kind of a toxic environment in the beginning of these books, and it has probably one of the best found families I've ever read before. This one follows Lily and Lo, and they're both are struggling with addiction, and it talks about their kind of journey throughout these books. There are a lot of them. I have not finished the series. And then we start to branch off into their sisters. So Lily and Lo, and then Rose and Connor, and then Daisy and Rick. So they all have these different books. So I read the first 2 books late last year. So the books that I have read this year was Addicted for Now, which was the 3rd book, Kiss the Sky, Hot House Flower, Thrive, and Addicted After All, which is Lily and Lo's final single book. What would I say? I would say Kiss the Sky is my favorite book in the series so far. This one follows Rose and Connor. They are my favorite couple. They're 2 very smart, elite type of academic rivals. And I just kind of love their banter back and forth and their personalities. Hot House Flower follows Reich and Daisy. I like them too. They are probably my least favorite. And then I think this 3rd one follows Lily and Lo still. Thrive follows Lily and Lo. Yeah, and anyways, you guys will get it once you read all of the books. The next one that I need to read is Fuel the Fire, and that is Rose and Connor's ending. And I'm really sad about it because they are my favorite couple. So Yes, I've rated these books from a 4 to a 5 star, depending on the book. Like I said, Kiss the Sky is my favorite. But this, again, rich people, they're all either related or friends, and it just kind of talks about how they all are each other's people, and kind of helping Lily and Lo out with their day-to-day lives. So that is my second series recommendation. Then we have an absolute huge favorite of all time for me, which, you guessed it, it is the Crescent City books by Sarah J. Maas. I read ACOTAR last year, ate those books up. I just loved them absolutely. They're my favorite series ever. And so I was like, let's just do this next. I know I probably should have read Throne of Glass first, but it's a really long series. I still need to get into it. I know I'm going to love it regardless. But this book is the first one. It's House of Earth and Blood, and I've already said this before, but the first 100, 200 pages of this book is very difficult to get into. But once you get into it, you really love it. So this follows Hunt and Bryce. They are their little romantic kind of couple. Bryce is half fae, half human, and then Hunt is a fallen, or an angel, I think. So it's kind of their story. I'm not going to get too much into it. I have a whole reading vlog over both of these books. But these books are just amazing, and Sarah J. Maas can just do no wrong with any books. They're both kind of covering like some mysteries that are going on, two different kind of mysteries. They're kind of tied together. But let me tell you that this book right here ends off on an absolutely nuts ending, probably the best ending I have read. And the third book comes out in January. So everybody's so excited for that, just because how this one left off is absolutely nuts. So I am really excited to continue this series. I highly recommend it. I know they're a little intimidating. They're huge books. They took me a little while to read, but honestly, they're worth it. If you're enjoying it, why does it matter? So highly recommend the Crescent City books. Like, go for it. If you love fantasy, if you love romantasy, please read these books. I know we've mostly covered series, or all we've covered are series so far, so I just thought I'd give you guys a little standalone. And that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I read this earlier this year, 5 stars. I love Emily Henry's books, but this and Beach Read are probably tied for my favorite. Maybe this one is my favorite. I don't really know. But this one follows Harriet and Wynne, and they have broken up. They have been together for a while. They broke up. And they are going with their friends, or their friends invite them on a yearly trip to, like, I think it's Maine. Yep, a Maine cottage. And none of their friends know that they're broken up. So basically they decide, let's get back together just for this trip and kind of fake it for our friends. And then at the end, we'll let them know that we broke up, just to kind of make them happy. This covers, you know, a wide range of topics. A lot of friendship, a lot of just relationship things. But it's just an awesome book. I think it was very atmospheric. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about this book, but yeah, this one was a really good one, and I highly recommend it if you have not read this one yet. Next up, we have Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. If you guys haven't heard about these books, I don't know where you've been, because these were probably the most hyped up, anticipated books of the year. This one just kind of came out of nowhere, and people just ended up loving it, and it got super hyped. And then this one came out in, I think, November, and you know, everybody was super excited for it. So this book follows, if you have not known already, and by the way, these books are both 5 stars. Most of these books that I talk about are 5 stars. This follows Xaden and Violet. Violet is starting to attend dragon riding school, basically, in simple terms. She doesn't want to be there. Her mom's forcing her to do it. And she's kind of not the typical dragon rider student. And in this college, basically, if you die, you fail. And a lot of people will die before graduation day. The biggest piece of advice I think her sister gives her is don't talk to Xaden Riorson. Xaden is a rebel kid, and you'll find out more of what that means in the book. But it's kind of like she really should not be talking to him. It's kind of forbidden. She shouldn't be talking to him. Obviously, that doesn't happen. But yeah, you kind of figure out there's a bigger plot point in this book towards the end. And then this book kind of carries on that big plot point. And the end of this book was also very nuts. And I don't know when she's coming out with the next one, but she needs to. So, yeah, and these books are beautiful. Like, they're amazing. A lot of people love them. I highly recommend them if you haven't picked them up. Just more fantasy. A lot of these books are fantasy because that is what I love to read. So, then we have the Caraval series trilogy. A lot of people, I feel like these books aren't hyped enough. We follow one of these main characters in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series that comes after. I have not gotten deep into that. I've only read the first book. But if you've read Caraval and you don't want to continue this trilogy, I highly recommend you pick up the next book, because by the second book, it gets so much better. It's such a fairy tale-esque type of place, like a whimsical, magical environment. This first book, we follow Donatella and Scarlet. Scarlet is the main sister in this book, and she gets invited to Caraval, which is held by this guy named Legend. And basically, it's like a whole game thing. People don't know what's real, what's fake. I just really love that mysterious element. And the big plot point here is that Donatella is the prize that everybody wants to win. She is part of the games. So her sister gets roped into the games. So we follow Scarlet, we follow her love interest, and that's how this book ends off. Then we go to Legendary, which probably was my favorite in the series. And this is where we get introduced to one of the characters that is in kind of the connected series. But this one follows Donatella and Legend. And I love them so much. I loved them so much. So yeah, that is Legendary. And this kind of brings up new plot points as well. And then we kind of wrap it up in Finale, which follows both sisters, both alternating point of views. And yeah, so I read these two back to back just because I loved them so much. So if you read Caraval, didn't love it, give the series a chance, because it's honestly such a great series. I don't think I've read really quite anything like it. Then we have The Serpent and Wings of Night. I can never get this title right. By Carissa Broadbent. And I have not read the novella or the second book to this book just because I just haven't got around to it. But this one was a 5-star for me. It's kind of a Hunger Games world, but like add vampires. So we are following Araya. She is not a vampire in a vampire society. And her dad is kind of like the king of the vampires. It gets very much more detailed than that, but that's just kind of the basis of it. And then she meets Rain, and he is a vampire, and they kind of become allies within this kind of Hunger Game competition that she enters into, because she wants to get the prize. And she's facing all vampires. So she's basically screwed. Like, yeah, but I just loved this book. I loved both of the characters, and I really need to keep reading this series and actually get the novella. But this is also a good one, another fantasy. But anyway, you learn a lot of stuff in this one too, and the ending in this one is crazy. I know I keep saying that, but a lot of these fantasy endings are just meant to be crazy. Then we have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I'm not very sure. She also wrote The Dead Romantics, which I never read. But this has to be one of my favorite romances of the year. Probably my favorite romance of the year. This follows Clementine and what is his name? Yvonne. I really don't know what he has a Ewan. This is just a short little romance. I loved it. I loved the characters. Usually you can't get me to like a romance that's just a single book. And I don't really care that much about it. But this one I really did. So this is about Clementine. She lives in an apartment that is basically magical, and it can jump back in time 7 years in the past. This is where she meets Ewan. They get along very well, and then she finds Ewan in the present time. So I don't know, their romance is awesome. I just loved the male main character, Ewan. I thought that he was a really good love interest, and it also is a lot more than a romance, kind of talking about like finding yourself, just doing what you love, basically. And yeah, I really love this one, and a lot of other people love this book, so I highly recommend this one. It's a pretty short read, and she is coming out with another book next year, and I really want to read it. And I should probably read The Dead Romantics too. But anyways, this is a really good one. And then we have Divine Rivals, which is probably another one you guys have seen absolutely everywhere. The second book for this one comes out very soon, I think the day after Christmas. And this one's a little bit different. It's a fantasy, but it's kind of a more chill fantasy, different from anything I've ever read. So it follows Iris and Rowan. They both work at this kind of newspaper, not company, but they're contributors to the newspaper. They're writing articles for them. So they meet there. They kind of had this rivalry, and you can tell they both kind of like each other. And then something happens, and Iris decides that she is going to go and report on this war that's going on, which is basically a war between these two gods that you learn about. And that's kind of like the subplot. And then I'm not going to tell you all that happens because a lot happens in this book, but this ending was nuts. I don't know what to do with the next book. I really don't. And I really didn't think I was going to rate this one 5 stars just because it's so kind of just not a lot happening, but also a lot happening. You know what I'm saying? And these two, their romance, Rowan, one of my favorite book boyfriends, like, I just loved this book. You have to pick this one up too if you haven't. Then we have The Grace Year by Kim Leggett. This is a 5-star read for me. It was a 5-star read that I really didn't anticipate. This one follows our main character, Tierney. She has to compete in something called the Grace Year, and it is basically men sending off a bunch of women when they turn a certain age to get rid of their magical powers. There's a kind of underlying twist in this book. They're sent out in the woods. A lot of them go crazy. This book was just really like psychological. I don't know. It was just something kind of nuts. And we had a little subplot of romance in here that I was not expecting, and it really tipped the rating to 5 stars for me. I don't know. I highly recommend this one if you haven't read this, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's okay. I loved it. I ate it up. It just is such a crazy thing to think about, a different like world that they live in, different kind of customs and practices, and I loved it. I really, really did. And then last on my 5-star favorite reads for 2023 is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm so glad I got to this one this year. I wasn't going to, and then I bought it and picked it up, and this is going to be a new favorite for me, and I can already tell I'm just gonna love this whole series, however many books she comes out with. This one follows Peyton and Kai, and in their society there are ordinaries and then there are elites, and elites have powers, ordinaries don't. And basically, kind of like the Serpent and the Wings of Night, Peyton is chosen to compete in this Hunger Games type of deal, and she befriends Kai, who is the prince of the elites, and their romance is probably the best romance I read this year. I just loved them so much. Both characters on both sides. But especially Kai. I loved him. And just the enemies to lovers, they want to kill each other, they don't. Like, I just love this book so much. And if you haven't read this, you need to pick this up right now. You really, really, really do. The next book, Reckless, comes out sometime mid next year, and I don't know if I can wait that long. And this one ended off crazy too. So you guys need to go pick this one up. It was really, really good. I really, really loved it. And yeah, go pick it up. And then to wrap up this video, we're going to have some honorable mentions. These ones weren't necessarily 5 stars, all of them, but they were still really good reads, and I really wanted to include them. So the first one we have here is the Mind F series by S.T. Abbey. This one kind of got a lot of traction in the beginning of the year, and I read it in the beginning of the year, and this is, I think, 5 novellas connected together. So if it seems chunky, that's why. But just the premise of this book makes you want to read it. It's a serial killer and a detective working on her case, trying to figure out who the serial killer is, and their romance. Was this book cringy at sometimes? Absolutely. Was it the best romance I've ever read? No. But the whole premise of this book and the, like, when is he going to find out that she is the killer is just awesome. I loved that. And I loved this one. So that's the first one. And then we have Dark Matter by Blake Crouch and Recursion by Blake Crouch. And if you guys want something different, you guys really need to pick these books up. They're sci-fis, kind of psychological thrillers. And I can't tell you what the difference between these 2 books are because I can't remember which one's which. But they both explore such out there topics, and you really have to think about it. But honestly, like, I know not all of this wrapped around my head, and I still thoroughly enjoyed both books. This one is about a guy that gets kidnapped, and he wakes up in a different world. It's very similar to his world, but little things are changed. And that's how that one starts. Okay. And then we have Recursion, which is a whole epidemic that's spreading throughout the world. People are kind of thinking about these certain lives that they've never lived, and people are wondering why. And then we get this detective that's working on these cases, and then a neuroscientist. And yeah, you just have to read it because I can't even explain it to you. It's very difficult to explain, but once you read them, they're just so good. They are really good. Then we have The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This was my favorite, probably thriller mystery of the year. I read No Exit by him, and I didn't like it as much as I liked this one. This one follows a girl named Emma, and the biggest reason I love this was because she had a dog. Like, the dog was a huge part of the story. I loved that. I loved that so much. But she kind of downloads this book. She gives him a 1-star review. The guy then kind of starts stalking her. So that's the whole premise of this one. Has a little bit of a twist. It was very fast paced, read it very fast. I loved this book. And then we have Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. And this is the series that I was talking about that follows the Caraval trilogy. And I've only read this one. It was pretty good. It wasn't a 5-star. But this one follows Jax and Evangeline. And I won't really tell you a bunch about it. And you don't have to read the Caraval series to read this one. A lot of people don't. But I don't know. It's just about them. She strikes a deal with him because he's the Prince of Hearts. He's magical. And then he basically tells her she has to kiss 3 different people of his choosing. And then this whole thing comes up that you have to read about to find out. And then lastly is a series, and it is a small town series, and probably one of the best ones I've read. And that is the Chestnut Spring series. I haven't read Hopelessly yet, and that's the last one, but I've read Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, and Reckless, and I loved these books. I think Powerless is probably my favorite one. But this just follows a bunch of cowboys, a bunch of bull riders, country guys, and their different love stories. They're all different tropes. They're all connected somehow. And yeah, they're not 5 stars by any means, but they're just really good books, really good romance books to read. And yeah, so that is the end of this video. I hope you guys got some recommendations. I know a lot of these books that I read were very popular this year, but just some extra confident or an extra boost for you guys to actually read these. I can't wait to see what the next year brings for books and all of the new releases, and I'm so excited to just find some more favorites and share them with you guys. And if you guys have any favorites that you want to share with me, please comment them down below. I will see you guys in the next video, and bye.